Servus, Matthias Eichler here, and this is Single Track. This week, we are traveling back across the pond to my motherland. I hope this jumping back and forth doesn't give you a whiplash, but gives you good insight into how my brain works and where my heart is at. Split in two as I divide my attention between Europe and the US, or twice the size as I share stories of people from here and there. Our mountain sport is universal and connects us across borders, languages, and cultures. Which brings me to this week's guest. Calling in from München in Bavaria, Germany, Eva Sperger is Bergsportler, trail runner, and mountaineer. She runs for the Salomon Trail team, is German Ultratrail Champion, and frequently places near the very top of the most competitive races in Europe. She's also a psychotherapist and has a private practice in München where she specializes in behavioral therapy and mental training and coaching, among other things. This background fascinated me so much that I tried to dive deep into the mental side of our sport. We often talk about nutrition, strategy, and of course our physical training blocks, but how do we train our brain, our feelings, thoughts, and emotions to allow us to perform when we're out on the trails, and how do we reach our goals when we put on the bib at race day and every day? Well, let's dive into this conversation and let Eva share her thoughts, her experience, and her incredible mountain story that takes us from the Zugspitze, the highest point in Germany, across the Alps to Chamonix and the mighty Mont Blanc. So, Eva, thank you so much for coming on Single Track. I am gathering you are calling in from Munich.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Yeah.
So I used to live in Munich, and I grew up in Stuttgart, and that's a complete insider conversation that nobody in the US will care about. But we, as the Schwabens, we usually don't think very highly of Munich. There's a big competition, right? Because your soccer team always beats our soccer team. So, but then I moved to Munich for a year and completely fell in love with the city. Are you actually from Munich, or are you what the Schwabians would call Reichsschmackter too?
Reichsschmackter. We have to be aware of that we don't have too many insiders. No, originally I'm from Regensburg, which is 1 hour away from Munich, so it was not such a big thing to move to here, but I also love Munich. It's really a great city, I think.
It is, and you moved to Munich, well, not just because it's one of the greatest cities, but because you also want to be close to the mountains. I assume that's why people in general move as far south in Germany as possible. Before we dive into why you want to be close to mountains, tell our listeners a little bit about what you do professionally every single day that is not actually running.
Yeah, I'm a psychotherapist. I work in a private practice. I founded it last year, but as a psychologist, I work very long time in that field, and I really, really love to be a psychotherapist.
This is something that I'm very fascinated about, because I hope, and you will be able to tell me if I'm right or not, in how much that influences you, that experience, that perspective, and how you walk through life, how much it influences you when you are out on the trail, out in the mountains, on these long runs, as you're making decisions and stuff. So that will be a question at a later time. Let's talk about your running. You run a lot. You're an ultra runner, and you run for Team Salomon as well. So yeah, give us a very brief bio of your running.
Yeah, I started running quite late. I think it was I was 35 already when I did my first trail race So no road races at all. I can't talk about my 10K time or marathon time because I never did that. And I was jumping in it from mountaineering and cycling and doing everything, but nothing really long time or to diving deep into it. And so with 35, I had a first 3 races, I think, and then already with 36, I started the series of winning, which was coming out of nowhere. People were saying, and later on I was thinking about, what was the basis of it, and I think there is a lot of basis.
So now you have to tell us what the basis is, because that would have been my question. I mean, if you did not grow up with, and that's a long-running theme on this podcast, that I think you get, a lot of people go into trail running in 2 different ways, right? You either have a running history in high school, you've ran the half marathons, the cross country, and these type of distances, and eventually as you get older you'd naturally transition into trail, and so you A, have your running legs, and B, you know how to compete, right? You know how to compete on this highest level. That is one half of the people, but the other half do come more from this, as you say, mountaineering and recreation. And sometimes so how do you find yourself then winning? Where do you get the physical ability and also the mental ability from?
Yeah, I really understood that when I was reading about training a lot and how it comes or how to train, and I understood, I did Thai boxing, started with 18 and did it for 8 years, and also competing at Thai boxing. And at Thai boxing you jump around literally whole time, so road jumping for 1 hour was no problem for me, so I could do that. It was, now I hear it in podcasts, it's good to do rope jumping to prepare yourself for running, so that there was a history of that. And then also very, very long stuff in the mountains, mountaineering, and being out every weekend in high mountains, and also doing 13 hours. And I think we were not so slow at that. And I think that gave me the possibility to prepare myself for having a good basis. To then start into a more structured training, which I already started then, when it was 36, and then, it was not such a long time doing trail running, and then I started a training plan, and that gave me good structure and, good progress.
What fascinated you to adopt a training plan and try to compete in races? Because if you've done mountaineering already, then ostensibly you could have said, well, let's just go for the Eiger North Face and go to Patagonia and just sort of do what a lot of mountaineers do and sort of do something more and more difficult. And it's sort of a very different path, right? Where trail races, you're competing with others. I mean, it's structured. It's sort of the very opposite of mountaineering, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's still something where my heart is bleeding, because sometimes I really want to go out with other people. They say, okay, we go mountaineering. Can you come with us? So I have to say no to that. And why did I decide for having a training plan? I think I totally fell in love with trail running immediately. And I love science. I love learning. Where people sometimes say they don't like it to learn. They don't like having Prüfungen. Sorry, you have to help
exams.
Me.
Yeah.
Exams. Yeah. I'm the one who likes to prepare for exams and to learn. And for me, thinking about training gave me a lot back in understanding things about nutrition, about recovery, and also that goes a lot into me being a psychologist. So it's not only about running, but understanding so many things through that thing to understand psychology more.
Mm-hmm. That is an interesting way of putting it, because for me, if I would have gotten that questions asked, then I would have probably answered saying that I've always loved being in the mountains, but I'm choosing races and trail running as opposed to mountaineering because the risk factor is lower. I have to, somebody puts the route out for me, or I get to enjoy being in a mountain, but I don't have to do truly scary things. That would have been my answer, because I'm somebody who doesn't like the big training plans and the structure. I like the problem solving to a certain degree, but more the problem solving on the fly as opposed to the problem solving beforehand, which probably creates more problems. I solved them at the wrong time.
Maybe no. Yes, I know what you mean.
No, I mean, there are two sets of different problem solvings, but I'm usually somebody who, tries to learn by doing rather than having a training plan and really the structure as you're speaking about it. All right, so you love the mountaineering, but you completely fall in love with trail races. Give my audience a little bit of a snapshot of what were some of your highlights of some of your favorite races, performances, places that you've run, that you've truly enjoyed running, and you would recommend people that this was absolutely the best race, you should do it.
Yeah. It's hard to decide.
I know, Europe has so many, it's really, really tricky.
Yeah.
But a lot of Americans, they know UTMB, and then it gets very, very thin. So I'm hoping to hear some races, especially given your history with UTMB. It won't be UTMB as one of the highlights. I'm looking forward to hearing some races, some names that are truly special races for you that people might have not heard before.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of sky races, which I really love. So very, very technical terrain, and so nice to be out there in the mountains. One of very, very beautiful races, I've done that in April, so recently, was Madeira Ultratrail. Courtney Duwater was also there. She was also telling about that. Such a beautiful race. So I would love that. And also, I love Großglockner Ultratrail. It's around the highest mountain in Austria. And I still love UTMB.
I mean, I think everyone loves UTMB. I think I've not heard anybody who said I've done the race. I mean, there's certain people who don't want to do it based on politics or whatever, but the people who have been there usually love it. But no, I get that for sure.
Yeah.
So you started running when you were 35. How long did it take you until you had a feeling that you've put a complete race together, where sort of everything clicked? Because especially on these long distances, there's so many variables that are, they're X factors.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started quite early with long distances. The first race was already 35, and then for marathon distance, and then jumping to 50, jumping to 100. And that was not so difficult for me because of the long days out in the mountains. If you climb Mont Blanc, for example, and there is a storm, so no one will secure you, so you are out in the mountains, and you have to go through it. So I was quite used to doing that, to doing the real long stuff, and so that was not such a huge jump for me. But what's also interesting, so I'm really interested in very long races. When people ask me which distance do you do, so I'm always answering with the longest distance. Sure, I love that. And on the one hand, you can become used to it. On the other hand, it's always something new happening. It's always, I try to, normally I'm not such a perfectionist person. The first race I just did them. So I would eat whatever is there, not thinking about nutrition, not thinking about nothing really. And I learned to get a little bit more into details and look for the details and planning. But still, on a very long distance, always something new happens. For example, at UTMB, my sticks, one of them didn't work. So I had no sticks at the beginning of the race. At Mute, one eye was not working anymore. So I couldn't see anything on the one eye, and my headlamp, which is the most expensive you can get, I think, and the best you could get, it didn't work. So I couldn't see on one eye. I couldn't see because of the light was gone. And if you know the terrain, it's very difficult to get along with that. So, and for me, that's interesting. That's that problem-solving part. How do you deal with that? How stable can you stay in the mind and go through it? So long answer to your question. I really love the long stuff.
No, that is very fascinating. So, just in the previous episode that we posted, I talked to somebody who prepared himself extremely well for a race, and then he realized that things went sideways, things didn't go well, and he then fell into a really dark place and finished the race but didn't do well and was really frustrated with it. So if you especially, I don't know, I mean, I think I don't know if you have extra pressure because you're somewhat of a professional athlete and sponsored. I mean, you have different pressures. But when things don't work like that, how do you... There's the physical side of it that you need to problem solve. Okay, my stomach's not feeling well. What do I need to eat? What can I do to make that work? Right? There is sort of the practical side. But how do you deal with the mental side? How do you then... because you need the mental side. Everybody says that running these long distances is 80% mental. So how do you stay focused and positive when your eye doesn't work, when your poles don't work, so something so basic that is it's just an accident, right? Yeah,
that's a big part of it. For me, it's not so much dealing with the physical side. It's more about thinking about the mental side. I do meditation, or I had a Buddhist study beginning at 2006. So it's a long time that I try to find out what goes on in the mind. So the Buddhist practice or meditation practice is inner practice, you could say, or inner science. So and when you're sitting, sometimes people think when you sit, it's just to relax or to feel comfortable. But it's absolutely not that. You get so bored if you sit there from beginning 6 in the morning to evening at 10, and you get bored a lot. Everything goes through your mind. So I'm coming from the meditation part, and I took that into running and tried to find out how is it if you have a very long day out. You have a session of 6 hours, and then the snow is coming back to Munich, and you have that long session. You have you don't know how deep is the snow. So it's not only in races, it's also in training. You have so many things which are really uncomfortable. And for me, the challenge and what I get out of the training, I would say, is also development of personality. So, because we have so many impulses all day, or so many thoughts, so many feelings. And I know from psychology that dealing with emotions or impulse control is one thing that predicts the most how good relationships are for people, how is life going. So this part of how you deal with your emotions, how can you get you would say in psychology, diffuse from your thoughts. Diffusion means that you don't take it personally. If I would have at Madeira, for example, I had all the time thought, why am I doing that? I don't like it. Why should I do that all training, which is so inconvenient and so much structure, and then going into a race, which is also very inconvenient. Why am I doing that? So, and that's the challenge for me, not to fight with these thoughts, not to over-identify with these thoughts, but taking up the challenge to just let them be there and follow the plan. Try to run, try to breathe properly, try to drink, try to eat. So just stick to the plan and go through the race. And I love failing. So I failed with not over-identifying because I identified a lot. So I was believing these thoughts in between. But then afterwards, it's interesting for me. You try to not identify with those thoughts because you know it will happen. But in that moment, it breaks. So in that moment, it's so difficult to deal with your mind. And this is really that part that interests me the most about racing, that it's so difficult to deal with your mind. So I would say everything that happens is part of the program. Everything belongs in a race. And I hear so many people saying, okay, something went wrong. I was afraid. I doubt myself a lot. I had so much anxiety. It's not belonging. So how can I get rid of that? And I always try to tell them, you don't have to get rid about it. We can't, because it's just biology. So biology is bringing up all that stuff to make us stop, because biology knows, okay, if you go on and go on and go on, and you completely destroy all your energy, so it can be something that is difficult for survival. So our mind is bringing up things just to make us stop. And so telling people, okay, this is part of the game. How can you deal with it? So try to be stable in mind and bring it back to life when something else is there. For example, if you committed for a partner and love comes up to another person, what happens? Can you stay committed? Can you stay in the race, which is, for example, a relationship? So this is so interesting, isn't it, to really know about your mind and when commitment breaks down.
Now, it is super, super fascinating to discover and to explore this, and to sort of realize, just like with all of the other aspects that we're preparing us for in going into a race, none of these things, there is no silver bullet. There is no immediate solution. We can, right? We can pick out a nutrition plan, and something comes up with during the race day, and nothing tastes good, nothing wants to sit down, and we have to adapt on the fly. We have to be okay with it. So we can work on trying to problem solve beforehand and prepare ourselves for it, but we don't know if everything 100% works, right? And so it's sort of a mixture of having a good plan and then sticking to the plan when these doubts creep in, but then also being good and focused on problem solving and making adjustments. It's complicated. That's why we love it, right?
Yeah, that's why we love it. And I think the plan you can have is all about what you have in your power. Because your mind, your feelings, your thoughts, you don't have the power over them. So it can't be part of your plan to want something which is, you don't have the influence on that. So the plan is very simple for me. The plan is eat, drink, go forward, and be aware of your breathing. So these 4 things mainly are my focus, sticking to the plan. And this is all behavior. You can do that. You can try to breathe deeply and get it down a little bit more quiet. So you can do these things. You can move.
Mm-hmm. So you are saying, and I'm not questioning you because you're the expert, but just to iterate. So you are saying that these thoughts in your mind are beyond your control. So you're not supposed to own them and fight them.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Because if you fight your thoughts, you fight yourself. And fight is always stress. And you are so stressed already. So this is a lot of energy you will lose in a fight. You never will win. If I tell you don't think about a pink elephant flying in the air, so really don't think about it. Don't think about a pink elephant flying. So I know what happens. You will think about it. You can't fight it. And the more you try to fight it, the more it will get. So if you fight self-doubt, for example, and try to be always in a good mood or believe in yourself, it's the same thing. It sounds good. It sounds good, positive thinking. And I heard about the study, which is very interesting, I think. Positive thinking can make us worse in a race. Why? Because if you don't succeed in being positive, it puts more stress on yourself. So it's really that mindfulness part that helps the most, which is not identifying with it. Let it be there, accept it. Don't judge it, non-judgmental, accepting, allowing, let it be there. And focus on what is in your power.
I mean, this is truly mind-blowing because, and I'm obviously simplifying and generalizing a lot, but I am calling from America. In America, the power of positive thinking is what rules the entire society, right? I think we very much would default over here to say, no, you have to do anything within your power to find your happy place. Always speak from your happy place. Always go back to your happy place. That's the way.
Yeah.
And you are now saying that this essentially wastes too much energy.
Okay. I would say yes, absolutely, and no.
Okay.
Okay. Because you've done races, for sure. So you know that you can't hold it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are really exhausted. Or if you do interval training, you are not happy. It's just biology.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So you will not be positive that moment. And yes, I can try to, and I'm a psychologist. I'm a cognitive behavioral psychologist. So what I do is for sure change the thinking and try to think positive. And I'm also use hypnosis and self-hypnosis, which is also part of thinking and trying to put my mind in a good place. And that helps for sure. And it's a very, very good strategy, and it helps a very long time. But at one time, when you really try to control it 100%, is not possible. There will be a point where it breaks, and then if you fight then against it, and you think, okay, I didn't manage to control my thoughts, so I did something wrong. I think that is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated. I'm absolutely fascinated by this conversation because I think there lies so much power. Now, let's take it back to you and your racing. Can you give us a couple examples from recent races? I mean, Madeira is obviously super fresh, and you dealt with issues there. How did you, in the moment, practice that? What are some of the things that you do to move yourself forward?
What helps a lot is doing everyday mental training, because we talk about mental training. Everyone is saying, oh, the mental side of running is so important. Mental side, yeah, do mental training. But to be honest, who is doing it in everyday training? Would you know today, if you had a run today, would you know what you should do? No, I'm sure not, because no one is giving us a training plan for that. So, and this is what I try to do. I try to create, and I'm trying to have also an 8-week course for that, because there is really a lack of training plan for the mental side. And this is what I try to do. I try to bring I'm also a teacher for mindfulness and self-compassion. So I try to put that in my training. So when I go out today for training, I try to focus on breathing, really try to focus my thoughts or the awareness on the breathing part and on the movement in that moment. So trying to get back in the moment, trying to bring my awareness back to breathing. And also there are some sentence, it's called metta meditation, which means that you have some sentence you focus on. May I be happy, may I run in a light way, or may I feel light, may I be safe. So these are the sentences. It sounds maybe a little bit strange to bring that in training, but I really like to do that. Or what helps also a lot for me is I have a book about Stoicism.
Okay.
And there are many very helpful things in it. At Stoicism, you would say, everything that goes into my way is the way. So, and I have that in mind. That comes in, I would say, at Verbier, which is a very, very technical race. The best time for a woman is, I think, 20 hours or something. So, and in the first 2 hours, I was scratching my ankle. And what immediately comes to my mind is, okay, what goes in the way is the way now. So now it's hurting. So deal with it. So being quiet and taking it into the race. It's part of the race. And also it helps a lot to not to think, okay, it's just me. So I have a burden no one has. Also knowing, okay, this is part of it. So everyone will suffer at some part. And this is helping me a lot, having these techniques, sometimes these sentences. Also, I try to bring in some words. For example, stay calm, be happy, and move lightly. So always having 3 words going through my mind and trying to focus on these words. So long answer again. These things come into my mind when something happens. I would say at Madeira, for example, when my light went off and these things happen. So, and also, bringing attention back to breathing, because breathing is for me a center. When you get stressed, you have to breathe a lot in a race. But still, breathing changes if you get stressed out. If you have pain, breathing is going into the upper parts of the body. So if I focus on breathing, I can calm myself down a little bit. And this is what I focus on and try to go back to in a race.
And this is the breathing that has the side benefit of also then controlling your heart rate, which is the physical aspect. But there is a mental aspect, which is that umbrella term, meditation focused on really centering yourself. I mean, this is incredible. This is exactly the conversation that I wanted to have with you. This is a really, really fascinating way of looking at trail running, not just through the physical sides that we often talk about, which is what's the best gear and what are we eating and what our training plans look like and how many miles we need to run. This is super, super cool.
Yeah, it's about commitment, it's about values, it's about dealing with the mind, it's about building up integrity, building up character. So this is really so fascinating, isn't it? So I love that, really.
No, it is. And this is then also where trail running really benefits you the rest of your life, right? Because if you choose to practice these things and get better at them for running, then obviously that also has an effect on the rest of your life, of your work, your relationships, the people around you, and how you're dealing with other parts in your life.
Yeah. So we need that difficult situations that become like a melting point where you really can see what is your character, what is your commitment, is it solid, yes or no? So do I go further in that race when it gets hard or not? So yeah.
On one side, there are these difficult points, and on the other side, it's so perfect because they are artificially difficult, right? We are incredibly privileged that we get to play in the mountains and do these things, right? And we might scratch an ankle, we might get hurt or disappointed, but these are not the real problems in life, right? This is a practice ground in how to make us better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like you say, it's a playground for that. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So, speaking of playground, let's shift a little bit. Mm-hmm. You started off saying that you come from the mountaineering background into trail racing, and we've touched a little bit on some of the races that you've done, but I would love to talk about the projects that you're doing, because for me personally, these are the more exciting pieces, the more exciting times we get to spend on the trail. They are, in some respect, more personal. They're more special to us. Trail races can give us a great experience and can give us a great opportunity. I mean, you perhaps wouldn't fly to Madeira by yourself to run these trails, but because there's a race, it's worth it going down, right? So we get to enjoy these things, but these special projects we come up with ourselves. So let's talk about first the one that you mentioned that I'm super fascinated with, which was the Zugspitze to Mont Blanc. Tell us about that project. First give us sort of the scope of it, and then we can dive in of how it actually was.
Yeah, the first thought about that was, okay, I'm in a relationship. What does a relationship make really good? So what can I do to make that a great place? And then I thought, okay, do something really special. And this was this thought about, okay, let's have a project together. And then we decided to do Zugspitze, so the highest point in Germany, to Mont Blanc, the highest point in the Alps. And then Corona came. And we didn't know if it will work out. And we just said, okay, no one knows really if we can go through 5 countries in that time, 2020. And we just stick to it and say, we'll see. If it doesn't work out, it won't work out. But we stick to the plan, we plan it, and it worked out. It was really was such a nice thing. It was so, so, so great to do that.
And so for you, this was just a personal project to celebrate your relationship. So you didn't make a movie out of it for your sponsors. You didn't like do sort of a website or diary or put it on fastest known time or anything. This was just a personal project.
Yeah. But it became quite big on Instagram because we always had these videos, so many really funny situations that came up. You couldn't plan that. And we put it in on social media or on Instagram. It was really a point where we started to love Instagram because so many people followed, and they followed literally every day. They knew everything about it, maybe because they were sitting at home and in the lockdown, and that was a nice part of it. But like you say, it wasn't our plan to do that.
And so you drove from Munich to the Garmisch, or what is Zugspitze, right? And then what route did you take up to the top of Zugspitze?
It's a route where you have a climbing part in it. This was something we got criticized because you should have a helmet and something where you can click yourself in, so climbing gear a little bit. So yeah, but it's a route we know and we feel prepared for that. So going up to the Zugspitze, I think people won't know the route we took. So yeah, and what was interesting for us all over that project was, we know that part from Hammersbach. It's called the village down Zugspitze is Hammersbach. So we knew this part, but except of that, we didn't know anything. So we just took a app, and we did our planning on that app. So sometimes it took us for 3 kilometers, it took us hours because it was so difficult, the route, and a lot of climbing, and then the snow came and everything. So we didn't know what will come up. And that was really the interesting part of it. If you just know there is a red line you have in the map, and yeah, surprise, everything, something new happens. So yeah, it was great.
So you went up Zugspitze and then down, and how did you get from the Zugspitze to the Mont Blanc?
Through Austria.
Did you drive, or did you?
No, we ran the whole thing.
You ran the whole thing. Okay, good.
Yes.
That's the piece that wasn't quite clear. Yeah.
Yeah, we ran. It was 750k, and I think it was 55,000 meters of climbing, and it was not only running, it was also high mountaineering. So we had a pure running part in it. And then that was our special moment, the last downhill, where we then had a deposit of our mountaineering gear, so rope and heavy boots and everything. So we thought, okay, if we can go through that running part, everything will be fine. And then, climbing the 4,000 meters peaks there in Switzerland. But it wasn't like that, because on that first day of mountaineering, my boyfriend scratched his ankle very severely, so it was very thick, and we it killed the project nearly. But then it didn't.
Okay, so that puts this entire project in a completely different light, because the Zugspitze and the Mont Blanc, there aren't mountains very close together. They're quite far apart. So how long did you spend time planning the route out?
Yeah, it was a long time. The difficult thing was, in that Corona phase, you had to book every hut. So we had to plan it, at home. And does it work out to have this 42k in which general we didn't know it, so we didn't know, does it work? So if you plan the whole route for, it was 23 days all in all, and every day 35 to 45k, and you don't know what happens, but we had to book it every day, and especially the huts in Switzerland, the high mountaineering huts, because there were not so many people allowed, so we had to get through it. And it's you can think about, okay, how many kilometers you can do in one day per running, but with high mountaineering you can think in kilometers per day, or even with altitude. You just don't know, because it could be very deep snow or very technical climb. So yeah, it was difficult, very difficult planning that. And their friends helped a lot. Mountain guides helped us to see what could be possible, and it did work out. So it worked well. We reached the huts. So it was special.
These are the projects that I think are so representative of this new phase of mountaineering, now that every route has been climbed, every mountain has been scaled. We are going faster and lighter, and we are coming up now with these creative projects that sort of tell a story and are unique, but they are so special and make use of, these skills that you love running, you love mountaineering, and combining those two is such a great way.
And maybe one thing that is special is that we did it as a couple.
Absolutely. And you're still together.
Words, or will we be married?
Yeah, exactly.
So that was a part which was very
No, for sure, that's amazing. So between Zugspitze and Mont Blanc, did you climb any other mountains, or did you try to find the fastest route in between?
Not at all the fastest, the highest. We did all the time the highest parts, so it was technical all the time. In Austria, it's if it's red, white, then it's like normal hiking route. There are blue and white ones when it's getting really technical. And every day, we didn't know it, but literally every day we were on blue-white parts. So, and this is, when you think about it, we always took the highest route. So this is why it was technical. It was really difficult. And we had some other mountains in between. For example, the Allerleinhorn it's called, which is a 4,000 meter peak, and Mont Blanc de Ceylon. Oh, I don't know. I think maybe it's a wrong name for it, but also a very high mountain, and we had some peaks in between.
Fantastic. And the beauty, so let's talk logistics a little bit. The beauty of the projects like that in Europe, in the Alps, is that you have these huts. Did you have a support team that met you in between to let you refuel, or did you just stay up in the high country and just refuel in the huts?
We had support for 4 days. My parents went with us in the first part. So and afterwards we haven't been all the time on huts, also going down to some villages and had food there and fresh food. And this was also very interesting for both of us, that when my parents were coming with stuff, we saw that it's more difficult to make decisions again. So this was one thing we really learned out of that trip, that I would call it the paradox of choice. We always want to have choice, but choice is difficult. It's exhausting, and we had for the whole time one shirt for the daytime and one shirt for night. and washing it every day. So you didn't have to think about anything, because we had our backpacks were 2.8 kilos for that, not for the high mountaineering part. So we had some more stuff for that. But for the running part, it was just that, no water. In that, but yeah, so it was nothing we took with us, and it was so interesting to see you don't need anything. It was so nice to have nothing with you.
Mm-hmm. That is truly something fascinating about spending time outdoors. Is our lives are so busy, and we have so many commitments and so many decisions to make every day. And to be able to strip that all away for a few days and just focus on just the trail ahead of you or the challenge ahead of you is so freeing, right?
Yeah. And so, this was why I was telling, okay, my parents, it was nice that they have been there, but afterwards we both were saying, okay, we could have gone through it without any support in it. So not to having these choices.
It is amazing. I love this. I absolutely love this project. I always feel like, our community sometimes puts too much emphasis on putting the calendar in front of us for the year and putting these races in, partially because you have to sign up. There's sometimes a lottery, there are these requirements. And so we stack our calendar too full with races, and we don't allow a time for these projects, right?
Yeah, sure. And for that, Corona was really good, because in that year I had 4 projects and these were really special, and everything of it was so nice to experience. And it was good for that. Now I'm back to races, to be honest. So I will have my honeymoon, and we said we will have a project, because we decided we want to do every year we want to do something like that. So this was our promise, and the next thing will be a honeymoon. Hopefully having a very cool project with that.
So can you tell us what the project's gonna be like? Do you already have an idea, or is it secret?
Still secret.
Oh, I like it. It's good. No, it adds too much pressure. If we make it publicly known, then, for yourself and stuff. That's
first I have to marry.
Yeah, I suppose that's true too. Well, very cool. Well, let's talk about the rest of the year then. If there are no projects lined up, you have races lined up. What are you training for right now? You came off a very strong Madeira race, which is sort of a season opener in Europe. So what does the summer hold when the Alps finally melt out?
I'm signed in for Lavaredo Ultratrail,
my dream
which
race.
is in the Dolomits. Very nice landscape, really, really nice. And I think it's not so technical, so I'm looking forward to that. It's more runnable.
So you've never done Lavaredo before?
No.
Okay.
It's first time.
I was signed up for Lavaredo a few years ago and got through the lottery and was super excited. And then I couldn't afford the plane tickets. It was just too complicated all the way from the West Coast. I was very, very disappointed.
Okay, it's amazing landscape. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. Then I will be at the Zugspitze Ultratrail, and but for a shorter distance there, to have a little bit of recovery after Lavaredo and also before UTMB. So it's the third time at UTMB, and hopefully I get through that. So this is the season, and maybe I don't know yet, but there are the championships in Thailand. And I have a big connection to Thailand because of the Thai boxing career I had. So I've been in Thailand already 8 times, and I'm looking forward to that. But I don't know if I'm nominated for the World Championships.
Okay.
see.
So, I mean, that's an amazing calendar, Lavaredo. We already talked about Zugspitze. What distance you're doing at Zugspitze?
I think it will be only the 45K
Okay.
to have a little bit of a quicker race, shorter and quicker race. Yeah, and then it's already close to UTMB. I think it's when you have 3 of that, or 4 if the World Championship counted with it, 4 of these races is already a lot. I know that there are many people who do a lot of these races, or every second week 100K, 120, and I think that's also a decision for me. If you really want to be good at it and want to be fresh, I try not to put too many things in my calendar unless I would to do that.
That is one of those things that, especially if you do the long distances, you just can't do the too many races, right? That's what I was talking about.
You will be slow.
I guess you can, yeah, that's true, but you will be slow. If you want to actually compete, then you need to focus. So, should we talk finally a little bit about UTMB? You've had 2 previous attempts that didn't go so well. This time around, you're going to finish, right? So can you give us
my very best? There comes up this stoicism again.
Yes.
I will be everything that is in my power to finish.
Perfect. What happened the last 2 races that you DNF'd?
Looking back to the first approach, or the first time I tried to do it, maybe it was the Großglockner Ultratrail was maybe a little bit too close. It was end of July, and it was a very good race for me, but it was close to UTMB. And then I had that spirit of, wow, that went so well. And I was pushing a lot in the beginning. Everyone was telling me, okay, listen, it starts very fast. Don't do that. And I knew it, but still I couldn't hold myself back. So no good impulse control. And it went well. So it was at 4th, 5th position in between. So it went very well. And then I never experienced that. But the man with the hammer, we would say in Germany, came, and the complete energy was gone from one moment to the next. There was no energy left. I just couldn't move forward, and throwing up and everything. So nothing more possible. I fell out of the race. Maybe other people would have still gone forward, but at this part it just wasn't possible for me. And last year it was afterwards. It's difficult to tell everyone what was the problem, but it was something very, very inconvenient. And afterwards, I would say it was an infection I had. So I started off very slowly, and I was in a good mood all the time. And where I went out, I still thought, okay, it's sunset. It's so nice being out. I want to move forward. So it was no mental problem at all, but just a physical problem, not being able to move anymore. So and this, you can't control everything. You can't be prepared. It was interesting for me because at Madeira I met Courtney Dauwalter, and I know that she's really perfect in problem solving, and I asked her, what would you have done with it? And she didn't have a plan for that. So I was, okay, if she doesn't have a plan for it, it's fine.
If even she couldn't do it, then nobody can.
I don't say that she couldn't do it. Maybe she went.
Oh, that's right. She did just it. I got it. Well, I think she still has the challenge of Western states, right? She hasn't unlocked Western states yet. So, like UTMB, she's figured out, but I think Western states she's still struggling. So we'll see how this year is going to turn out for her.
She also has her things.
Exactly. She's not perfect, but she is as close to perfect as it gets.
Very close to perfect. But Yeah.
And me as a German, I have to obviously point it out that people are not 100% perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. That sounds like an incredible race calendar. I wish you all the most success in training and preparation. Thank you for coming on the show. Before you go, do you want to tell our listeners where they can connect with you, reach out, follow you along?
Yeah, but the best thing is Instagram, I think, and also, maybe at Strava, which is, I like that because it's interesting to follow people there. I'm also at LinkedIn, but not so active there, so maybe the best is Instagram.
Perfect. We'll have links to your accounts for Instagram and Strava in the show notes. Eva, thank you so much for an absolute incredible conversation. This was exactly what I was hoping for, sort of shining a light onto an aspect of not just our running, but also our life a little bit that we often overlook because we try to make it too simple sometimes.
Yeah, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a first English podcast.
Absolutely, you are more than welcome. Are you dreaming of ever coming over here and racing?
Sure, absolutely. Yes.
What would be your races that you would do if somebody would come and say, "Here, I'll get you golden tickets. I'll get you free tickets to races." What is on your list?
I think hard rock is something that would interest me. Yeah, because I think that might be something really interesting for me.
Yeah, hard rock is the impossible race, right? It's so hard to get into it.
This is why maybe I would choose that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Eva, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.